Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with my buddy Milo. Come here, Milo. We went over a little touch during the exercise. Boop. Yes. So basically, this is Milo's roadmap to success. Milo's main problem is he's run out, as he did to me, he came up and bit me because he was, I think, startled. He didn't expect to see me. And I think when he has people that he doesn't know who they are, I think he thinks part of the way he contributes to this house is by being the guard dog. Now, he's only bit about 4 or 5 people, so it's, well, okay, 4. And these situations have come where somebody's leaning over him. That's why the video above we talk about dog consent, because I think he's a little guy, and I think people have been reaching over and petting him and interacting with him. And most of the time it's fine, but if we look for those signs of consent that I talk about in that video a little bit, and we start pulling back when he says no, then he starts feeling, people are listening to me. I don't have to nip them. Typically when dogs nip, they're trying to disagree. There we go. And so if we reach for him and he turns or backs away, we stop. After a while, he's like, I don't have to go to the nipping because they're listening to me. Now, I think part of it is he's a little bit lower on self-esteem and confidence. And so we went over teaching him some new tricks and commands. His guardian, one of the things we taught was, I call it attention, but sitting pretty. So when you do that, make sure that when you're holding the treat, he's going directly up. So at one point you're kind of turning to the side, it's harder for them to do it. So as soon as he puts his paws off the ground at all, we say yes and give him the treat. We used yes as his marker word. If you want to change that, that's fine. Just all you do is grab about 20 treats, walk around the house, say good, give him the treat within 2 seconds of saying it. Walk somewhere else, say good, give him the treat, and keep on repeating. And after a while, then we use good as an indicator every time he does something that we want him to do. So he touches our hand, we say good. He goes to the dog bed, we say good. He sits, lays down, comes, things along those lines. Good. Or whatever the word is you want to use, just try not to switch it up. We've been using yes. Whatever word you settle on, just kind of prime it with that 20 treats, walk around like I just talked about. And then after that, you just say the word when they do the action. Now, eventually we want to transition to a command cue. When we do that, it would be, let's see if I can do it right here. Drop, yes, good. Well, let's try that again. Fetch. Well, you're kind of being lazy. Yes. So I said fetch as I threw the object. He brought it back to me. Eventually, when he brought it to where I wanted him to bring it, I said yes. Then I gave him the reinforcer of the treat. So the order is when we're using a marker word is before he really knows the cue. So we say the marker word the instant he does the thing. So, hey buddy, sit, yes, and then I would give him a treat as soon as the butt hits the ground. Once he knows it, then I would just say sit. When he sits, then I would just give him the treat and I can drop the marker word. But there's nothing wrong with using them. A lot of people use them. Sit, the dog's butt hits the ground, say yes, and then they give the treat temporarily. But eventually you want the command cue to be an indicator for the dog that means I'm going to get a reward if I do whatever the action that command cue it represents. All right, so we talked about, let me go ahead and go back to the beginning of the session. We talked about exercise. Right now, he just got a little mini bolt of exercise, and that's really what dogs need. So if he comes over and he kind of goes like he is now, or he gets a little feisty, he's saying, I want some exercise, or some stimulation. So basically, the guardian has been taken for these really long walks. I would rather see shorter walks more frequently. One thing I forgot to mention here, what we'd like him to do is be sniffing. Dogs burn more in a walk by sniffing than they do from walking. Now, he is just all over the place with his eyes. He's very excited for the walk, but he's probably so excited he can't do anything. So what you might want to do is grab some finely shredded cheese, go out in your yard without him, and drizzle a little bit here, walk a couple paces, drizzle it there. Take him with the leash and walk him there, and let him kind of discover the cheese. Well, he's going to lick it up and sniff and look for some more. Then you walk him kind of the next one, and then you find some cheese there. So eventually when you take him on a walk, you might go and like every other house, you drizzle a little bit of cheese here first, and then without him seeing it. So now when he goes on a walk, he's sniffing the ground looking for this cheese. That makes him less enamored with the people around him. He doesn't really bark at people on walks, but sniffing I think will be more relaxing and comforting for him and help the walks be a little bit more productive. Walks more frequently. Playing tug of war is a great game. Right now he's playing fetch. So when you're playing fetch, like I said, say fetch as you throw it if you're pretty sure that he's going to bring it back to you. If not, just throw it. When he brings it back to you, say yes, hold out the treat, say yes when he gets to you and hold out that treat. He drops it, pick it up, say, and then just throw it. When you know he's going to bring it back to you, then you say fetch as you throw it. He brings it back to you, you say yes, and then you give him that treat. And eventually you just say fetch, throw it, he brings it back to you, you give him the treat, and then you throw it again, you don't have to use your marker word. All right, we also talked about some rules. He really doesn't have any rules, and the Guardian have done some things that I think are a little confusing for him, like feeding food from our plate. So for dogs, they know they shouldn't be within 7 feet of anybody who's eating. That's kind of a general rule in the dog world, unless they're a good relationship with them. If a dog wants something, it will come invade space to challenge and ask for that item. So if the dog comes and invades our space and we give him some of our food, we're kind of saying, yeah, I'm cool with you trying to take my food. And so if you want to give him food, just make sure you put it in the plate and give it to him afterwards. I got to come back to feeding here in a second. Let me see. So shouldn't be allowed at 7 feet of anybody who's eating. Shouldn't be allowed in the kitchen where we're preparing food. The relaxation protocol, if Claire comes back, that's what you would have him do, go to the dog bed while you prepare stuff. Also using Premax. So asking him to sit before you open the door to let him outside. But again, I tell him to sit, 1, 2. He didn't sit by 2. I'm just losing interest. I'm going on to the next thing. For the door, if I tell him to sit, if he doesn't sit within 2 seconds, sit down at your table near your door. Pull out your phone, put a magazine up there so you can kind of act like you're casual. If you just sit there like this, he knows you're waiting for him. So kind of read a magazine. This is demand. Sit. This is actually a Premac right here. Sit. I kind of cheated for you. Fetch. So he wanted me to do it. He was barking, telling me what to do. I wanted him to do something else. The Premac means a less desirable behavior earns me more desirable behavior. Drop. Yes. You want to play tug of war? You want to play fetch? Sit. Yes. So he's sitting now because sitting is what gets me to throw the ball. We're creating motivation for him. Drop. That's my hand. I don't want to play tug of war. That's a good game to play if you want to burn energy, but that's what you're doing intentionally. So tug of war. So a lot of times when I go tug, 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 I don't, you have to say that. But when I want to stop, I don't want his energy too high, so I'm ready to get him to do it. Give means give me the object, drop means drop the object. So now if I want to do this, I have a treat in my hand. Give. Sit. I don't want you to jump for it, I want you to sit. So he's fired up. He's too excited to listen. So I'm just going to withhold, fetch. As soon as he sat down, then I threw the item. So I'm making it easy for him to know what it is that I want him to do so that it's less stressful for him. He knows how to play this particular game. And if we want to tug, 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 tugging is, like I said, a great way to burn energy. And when I'm ready, I'm pinching off a treat in my pouch and I just give, yes. All right, so let me see. So for the door, go to the door, say sit once. If he doesn't sit within 2 seconds of the first and only time you say it, remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. Sit down at your table, read a magazine for 1 minute, then go back to the door and stand. When you do it, go to the door, don't reach for the handle, turn to face him so your torso is facing him, say sit, and then go back to, so it's kind of I don't say that's a little bit harder way of pronouncing than I would, but say sit pretty assertively. And then if he does it within 2 seconds, you sit down for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. Keep double length of time. If he does this, don't even look at him. Any attention, remember, is validating. Yes. He laid down, so that's something I like, so I threw it for him. All right, so we also, let me see, we talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is petting your dog for a reason. So if he comes up and nudges me, he's telling me what to do. If I pet him, then yeah, he's the boss of me. So instead, if he nudges me, I say sit, sit. If he sits within 2 seconds, I would reach and pet him, remember, in that oval, under the chin, on the chest, or the shoulders. If he doesn't, like he just did there, I just go back to what I'm doing. Playing hard to get works great for dating, it works great for dog training. So eventually he'll understand that if I don't do what David wants, or his guardian, or whoever it is, they're just on to the next thing. They're living their best life, and I'm the one who's missing out as the dog. There's no punishment or correction, but if I sit, then they do what I want, that Premax principle. So eventually he'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. Now, if he's already sitting here and he's barking at me, I would tell him to sit here or here or here, or tell him to lay down. I would not tell him to shake. Shaking promotes more jumping. And then if he does it, then I pet him, I mark the behavior. So I say sit, he sits, I say yes, and then I pet him or throw the ball or whatever it is. And if he doesn't, then I just go back to what I'm doing. After a while, he'll come start sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. When he does that, make sure you pet him. Otherwise, he will go back to the barking and the other things that works. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because that's the most consistent way to get our attention. And for dogs, good attention, bad attention, the same thing. So the more you pet with a purpose, if he's telling you, he's nudging you, he's pawing, he's barking you, he's telling us what to do. Or if I want to pet him, I tell him to sit. And if he doesn't sit, then I show him I have other things going on. It's no big deal to me. But eventually he'll start sitting to prepay for that attention. Use the watchword of paycheck. Paycheck means I suspect you forgot to pet him with a purpose. So if someone comes in and sees I'm petting Milo and he's standing, they say paycheck. I stop petting him, even if I did it right. Tell him to sit. If he sits, then I would say yes and pet him. Then I would say, actually, I asked him to sit before, when you opened the door, he got up and I continued petting, but thanks, I do forget to pet without a purpose. If you get in a habit of doing that, it increases his respect for you as a leader. It boosts his self-esteem and confidence because he's earning the attention. Yes, that's passive training. We're going to talk about that next. It also, it helps you practice basic behavior, and it makes your pets more valuable. So really 4 powerful things that happen. It'll take you about 2 months to get in the habit of doing it. So use that watchword of paycheck. And remember, that's not chewing anybody out or saying you did it wrong. That's just a gentle reminder because we don't realize how often we pet without a purpose or for the wrong things. Now, what I did there right here is yes, is what I call passive training. A lot of trainers call this capturing. What it is we're just waiting for the dog to offer the behavior that we want and recognizing it within that 2-second window. So every time he comes to me, yes, and I pet. Every time he sits near me, yes, and I pet. Lay down, go to the dog bed, sit pretty, anything that he knows how to do that you like him doing. I taught one of my dogs to grumble this way. I'd come home, and when you guys come home, ignore him if he's excited. When he calms down, reach for him, he gets excited, pull your arm back and just continue. You'll have to probably start and stop several times before he actually, might be 10 minutes after you get home before he's calm enough where you can reach down and pet him and he doesn't go all crazy. Remember, excited is not happy for dogs, and it's harder for them to listen when they're overexcited. My dog Quest, I would do the same principle for him when I came home, and I would ignore him when he'd be all excited and barking. Well, eventually, one time he went, brr, which I thought was kind of funny. So I marked, I said yes, and I petted him. Now he comes up to me and goes, sits, if I don't pay attention, he goes, oh, which is funny as hell. But I used it through I basically taught him that through capturing or passive training. So basically, anytime that he does anything that you want him to do, mark within 2 seconds, say your marker word, and then pet him. Now, I'd like you guys to practice the exercise that I have in the video above this one, the paired handling. Especially anytime that you reach for him, he moves away, pull back. And then it'd be nice if you had treats kind of around so you don't have to go all the way to the same cupboard. Maybe a little Tupperware thing up here, if you have a little drawer in there in different places. So that way you can immediately do it. And remember to practice that in different parts of the house. If he consistently pulls away to a certain part of the house, that'd be a good place to practice that. Let me see. We can also work on him getting excited at the door. But for now, just worry about that maintenance. So the windows that face the front of the house, tape white paper just for about the first 12 inches, just solid enough where even if he stands up, he can't see out. So if he barks, he doesn't think that his barking is what's making people leave. Let me think, what else? Feeding. So basically the guardian here free feeds, and for dogs, eating is the most important activity for them. And so if we provide the food in the bowl all the time, there's no impetus to eat. So what I would do is I'd go to feeding him 2 or 3 times a day. Go over there, put his food in the bowl, and invite him over. Milo, tap the bowl a couple times. Don't over ask him, but make it clear that it's time for him to eat. If he doesn't come over within a minute, I pick up the bowl and I dump it empty, and I put the empty bowl back down. So every time he walks by, he recognizes it's empty. Most dogs just come over and lick the empty bowl. And then he doesn't eat again until the next meal or unless it's training. And that'll make him more motivated for training. Next meal, repeat that. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a day or 2 without eating. It's not ethical to withhold food from a dog, but you're providing a situation, you're saying eat now or the food goes away, which is exactly how it happens in the wild. If they don't have a successful hunt, there's no 7-Eleven or Burger King for them to go to. That motivates them to be better hunters the next day, or in this case, to listen to the guardian or eat the food when it's offered. It's helpful for dogs that are insecure or have lower self-esteem to have more structure and regularity in their life. So knowing what time food comes, what time we're going for a walk, and that stuff, sort of routine can actually lend itself towards building some confidence in him. Also, what if he needs medication? He needs to eat it with food. We don't have to get to the point where we have to doctor it with, all sorts of crazy stuff. We want him to eat the food when we present it to him. Now, I'd like, it'll take about a week, and I think after about a week, you should be able to put the food down, and then as soon as he eats it, you would say yes. Now, you don't have to mark it, but what you could do is when you know he's going to eat, as soon as you put the food down, you say meatball, and then he comes over and eats his food. Well, that can become a command cue. You say meatball, and he goes, oh, it's time for me to eat. So I like using fun command words. Dogs can read our facial expressions, so it's a nice motivator. We can also, Claire can show you something called the bucket game if he gets excited for food, but I don't think you're going to have that because right now food is not a valuable item for him because it's always available. That might change. Now I'd like to have Claire come back and Claire will go over the relaxation protocol. And if you want to use Claire to have her work on some basic training, I think I'd like to get him up to the point where he knows at least 10 different cues or commands, because that's going to really help not only with his confidence, but also give you a lot of different ways to redirect him. Let me see. Trying to think, is there anything else you want me to go over?
No, the feeding was the one.
So, what I was going to say is once you get to that point, switch over to a snuffle mat. See, I remembered myself. So a snuffle mat, make sure it's pretty sparse or pretty thick. Don't get the one that's just, you'll see some that look like they're balding almost. You want it almost like a really thick up and down carpet. And so you put his kibble in there, he's got to use his nose to find it, move it, lick it up, and repeat that over and over again for meal times. Now that I remember about this, he likes to bury his bully sticks. So what you could do is just get, these are bully bites that I gave you, but get a bully stick, drill a hole through the end of it, and take a zip tie and zip it to the leg of a chair or to a dumbbell weight or in his kennel or wherever it is. So that way he can't take it somewhere else, and that will help him get in a habit of chewing it. It's not a big deal. Right now he's doing a great job. His guardian's doing a great job. He's demanding that she get the bully stick that she moved, that he buried in the chair. And he's saying, get me my bully stick. And she's not even looking at him. Remember, even looking at him is validating. So we're just going to kind of ignore. And when he does the right thing, we're going to consistently mark and reward through celebrating or passive training. While I think about it, celebrate. Never use that watchword. So if I'm sitting here and Milo comes up to me and I don't start petting him, they would say celebrate. That means I stop what I'm going to say, yes, and I start petting him. So after a while, if I recognize Milo's over there, he's walking towards me, I would say come, knowing that he's going to come here. Then I would say yes when he gets here and pet him. So that way it creates more of a motivation. But a lot of time, the only time we give our dogs cues is right before, at the end of fun. He's in the backyard yelling at the neighbor dog, and we don't want him to be bothering the neighbor. So we say come, he comes and listens to us, so we close the door. And he's like, last time you asked me to come, it was the end of fun. I'm not going to listen to you next time. That's why we like using celebrating or passive training or capturing, is waiting for him to do it on his own. And we just recognize and reward that after the act. We say the marker word, then pet him. All right, so get yourself a snuffle mat. I would also like you to get an Omega Paw Tricky Treat Ball, a medium. Use that, and then also look for treat dispensing, food dispensing toys or puzzles on Amazon or Chewy. I like there's one that kind of looks like a flying saucer. It's got the rim and it's got a ball in the middle. They have a whole bunch of different ones. Get 2 or 3 different shapes, and then for each meal, put half of his meal in the snuffle mat, the other half in the little deal. And when you have guests come over, that Omega Paw treat ball is a great one to load up with some kibble. He's nudging that thing around the room as opposed to barking at the guest or demand barking or whatever it is. He's kind of spoiled, so it's going to be a little bit of a who blinks first situation. So remember, rules are not mean. Rules are just a way for him to see that I have to do things to earn my way or whatever I want. But the more that he does that, that's going to boost that self-esteem, help you create a healthy leader-follower dynamic, and that's going to be really beneficial. Let me see, what else? I think that's about it. So now if you have any questions, please text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. You have my cell phone number. I don't care if it's 3 years down the line. Shoot me a text if you forget how to do something. But try to work on that. And also for training, try to keep it under 3 minutes multiple times a day. So I showed you that the sitting pretty. I would grab, and that's a good one to do with about 20 treats. So just do that and just keep on rocking him up. And when you get to the point where you can go like this, and he's going pretty much, which I don't think will be very hard. He seemed to get that one pretty quick. Then say attention. And then when he does it, say yes and give him the treat. And so what I do, I go, attention. If this is the dogs right here, I hold the treat here and I say, attention. And I rock them back at the same time I go like this. So eventually when I meet people on the street, I can say, attention. And my dog gets up like this and it looks pretty funny. So it's a nice way for him to engage with your guest. One last thing we try to go over is teaching him how to catch. So when you do that, you need 2 people. So you throw the treat once, and if he catches it, you say yes, and then you throw another one. If it hits his nose and hits you around, you pick it up. So he only gets it if he catches out of the air. That creates that motivation. Now, this is going to be very much a who blinks first scenario. Make sure that you do not blink first. It's yes, that was a very good down. But it'll get worse a little bit for a couple of days, but then it'll start getting better because he's going to know what the parameters are, what I need to do to get what you want, and now he's going to be motivated to do the things that you want. So you're kind of all on the same page. Last thing is I would try to avoid getting him surprised. Remember, you can set him up for success by exercising before a guest come over. If you're gonna do construction or something like that, make sure he's getting exercise before those people come over. And a nice thing to do would be to have, if you're gonna have a worker come over, have him on a leash, do the trail of treats like I saw outside, and then have the workers just sitting off to the side if you can. And so then basically they come out, he gets treat, and do that occasionally when there's nobody out there. So he just thinks, sometimes I just go out, there's a trail of treats. And then he comes up and he meets the person, keep him on the leash so he doesn't go and bite him, bring him inside and then have him sit down and then have him throw a treat in between him and the worker. You let the leash go so he can get to the treat but not to the worker, and you're gonna wait for that energy to subside. So if he's in that frantic frenzy, I think that's when the bites are happening. So if we can use the leash, we don't have tension on the leash, but we can use that leash to prevent him from getting to the person. The person throws a treat towards him, he comes over and gets it and moves away. Remember, look for that lean. If he's got his legs out behind him or he won't sit, he's saying I'm uncomfortable. And if he's just staring at the person or barking, the person can throw the treat behind the dog to get the dog to move away. What the dog's doing is barking, saying, you're too close. But dogs don't realize I can back up. We can throw the treat behind the dog and that achieves the same thing. Milo. Yes. This is my buddy Milo, and this is Milo's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.